So if you're watching this video, you are in need of guidance on how to submit an offer on a piece of property here in Georgia. I appreciate you tapping in for this video. If you're not getting this level of support and training that you're watching on this YouTube video, I implore you to have a conversation with me about joining eXp Realty, because I do personal trainings like this for my team members on a very regular basis. So you have the support of both the brokerage, but on a granular level, you'll have your boy here in order to assist you with your first of many transactions as a Georgia real estate agent. So one of the things I want to walk through with this particular video is that the information that we're sharing on how to write an offer on a piece of property in Georgia is relative to single family homes only, okay? So for this training, this is not a training on how to write a lease agreement. This is not a training on how to write an agreement on a commercial piece of property. This is for a single family home here in the great state of Georgia. In the future, I may have other individuals come on to walk through those types of scenarios, but for all intents and purposes, this call and this video here that you're watching is for how to write an offer in Georgia as of this recording. All right, so let's jump in. I'm gonna share my screen right now. All right, so I just pulled up a piece of a property that's currently for sale here in Georgia. This is just a random home that I found on Zillow.com. And this is a property in Stockbridge, Georgia. So the first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna wanna look up the particular address, or you may already have an address in mind that you are interested in writing an offer on. So that's great. The first thing that you're gonna do, and again, this is how to write an offer as an eXp agent. Your particular brokerage may have other steps that they have you do, but this is gonna be how to write an offer, specifically pulling the documents needed from FMLS, which is one of the MLS systems here in Georgia, through the Remind system. So this is what this video is in regards to. Again, your particular brokerage may be a lot more cumbersome and have more steps, but this is a very clean, straightforward way to get offer documents, assuming you're part of an MLS, FMLS, which you would be here in Georgia. All right, so this is the address, 500 Melview Court. So the next thing that you'll do once you have your address is you will go to FMLS or firstmls.com. Again, if you are a real estate professional, I implore you to be a part of an MLS. For Georgia real estate, you have to be part of FMLS. So that's where we're going to go here. So I'm going to click login. And again, you should have your login already set up. So once you're logged into your FMLS, in order to find the paperwork, again, as part of your FMLS membership, you actually get access to all of the paperwork required for single family home real estate transactions, such as submitting an offer. So you'll go to products, and then you'll go to matrix. That would be the first step. And this is my FMLS, first MLS matrix. And again, feel free to run this video at 1.75 speed or rewind if you need to, in order to circle back to, so you don't miss anything. So once you're here on the matrix screen, you'll enter the MLS number, which you can find that information through Zillow. Typically, the MLS number is going to be listed somewhere here. And usually with Zillow, they'll list the GAMLS number first because it'll be different than the FMLS number. So if we click on here, it may give us the FMLS number in this listing, and it did. So here's the MLS number, 7192980. So we'll click copy, and then we'll go back to our matrix tab, and then we'll paste that MLS number right here in the search bar. Then we'll click enter. All right, excellent. So we found this listing. We know it's the same listing because we see the same sales price, $369,900. So we'll click into, and the address, of course, is right here. So you'll click this particular listing. And again, this is information that only a real estate professional that's part of this MLS would have access to. So if you are not a licensed professional, you're not going to have access to this information, but this is how to write an offer as a real estate professional here in Georgia. All right, so this is just a couple of pieces of information. Most of this is front end information that you'll see on the actual listing. The private notes here are specific to what only real estate professionals can see. But what I need from here is essentially just the MLS number. So I already have that MLS number from this information here that we copied, but I just want to show you how to find this listing in the back end, because it's a good idea. If there is a real estate agent, this listing is through OfferPad. So if you're a real estate professional, you can go down here and you'll see Jacqueline Schaefer, whoever that is, that's the listing agent for this particular property. But with OfferPad Homes, they go through things a little bit different as far as submitting an offer. But I just pulled this as an example of how you can get the information on the listing from a back-end perspective. And I do strongly suggest that you reach out to the listing agent. That way you can learn a little bit more about what the seller is looking for in an offer that they'll consider. It's always a good idea before you submit an offer to go ahead and reach out to the agent, just for one, to find out if the home is still available and if they have a pending offer that they're already working on. So if they say that the home is available, then all you gotta do is go back to your main MLS page, and then you'll hover over to the products tab, and then you'll move your mouse over to Remind Docs. You'll go to create a transaction. So once you go to the Remind Docs tab, you'll go to create a transaction, and it's going to ask you what type of transaction this is, and this is for the purchase of a home. Please select which side you're representing. For this particular video, we're writing an offer, so we're not the listing agent. And the transaction name, we'll just call this dummy offer. You're not a dummy, of course, but I'm just saying it for the offer. And then right here, it's asking for either the address or the MLS number. So we'll enter the MLS number, 7192980. Once I enter in that number, it'll automatically populate the address in question, which this is 500 Melview Court. It's going to show the seller's information here. And then you click continue. Okay, so the forms that you're going to need in order to make an offer on a piece of property is going to be the form F201. You're also going to need form F510. And if you are representing someone, even if you are representing, if you're representing someone, you'll, of course, in making an offer, which you would be, then you'll want to include form F110. And if your broker requires it, then of course your affiliated business disclosure. You'll also, if this is a conventional loan that you're using to finance it, then it'll be a conventional loan contingency exhibit. But again, if you're using an FHA, then you'll look for that specific one. And you'll want to also include an agreement for a closing attorney to serve as the holder of the earnest money. If your brokerage does not hold the earnest money, then I always recommend that you utilize a closing attorney to do that. So that would be form F511. Okay, in addition to these forms listed here, within the actual listing itself, you'll also want to get from the listing agent the seller's disclosure, if there is a seller's disclosure, as well as a community association disclosure if there is an HOA. So those are documents that you would get directly from the listing agent. Usually, they can email it to you, or they may tell you that information is already inside of the MLS listing. So they'll direct you on where to get those additional forms, but primarily you'll need a copy of the listing with the offer. That's always suggested to have the purchase and sale agreement, closing attorney acting as holder of earnest money, exhibit form F510, the exclusive buyer brokerage engagement agreement, conventional loan contingency. Of course, this is if you are going the conventional route. If you're going the FHA route, then you'll just plug in the form number for that. Your broker can provide you that information, but for the intents of this particular tutorial video, I'm just assuming that it's a conventional loan that'll be financed. If it's cash, then there's a form specific for that. And then the agreement of the closing attorney to serve as the holder of the earnest money as a buyer. So once you've got all your forms here for the offer, then you have to go into each individual one and edit them. So we'll start with the purchase and sale agreement. Well, now that we have the purchase and sale agreement, that's the first document that we'll edit here. So the great thing about working with EXP is that part of your MLS membership, it'll automatically brand all the pages that are required for the purchase and sale agreement and any other specific forms that are needed. It'll already have the EXP information here because of course you're a real estate professional here or considering becoming a real estate professional with EXP. And when you plug in the MLS information, it's automatically going to pull all of the information for the property automatically. And it'll also plug in any, land, lot, district, all that information if it's in there as far as part of the MLS listing. So here's where you plug in your offer price. So the listing price for this one was $379. So let's just say hypothetically, we're going to offer the full listing price here. We're going to say that we're going to contribute we're asking that the seller is going to contribute $2,500. It can be whatever as the buyer's representative, whatever you think from a negotiation standpoint that you can ask for from the seller. I'll just plug in here $2,500. We'll say that the closing date is going to be 30 days from today, March 28th. So we'll say April 28th is the expected closing date. This information here this is one of the closing attorneys that I use, Weissman. They're really cool. I've always had a positive experience with them, so I typically use them. Unless the seller, as part of the counter negotiation, has a specific closing attorney that they want to use. But you as the buyer's representative, ultimately, if this is whoever your closing attorney you want to use, if that's what you want to put on the offer, you most certainly can do that. The seller can, again, counter requesting you to use a different closing attorney law firm. But again, that's part of the negotiation, so it's your call. So earnest money on this offer here, with this particular closing attorney, they use ACH. So I would check that box if you decide you want to use Weissman. And again, this isn't you can use any closing attorney you feel comfortable with. But again, I've used Weissman on virtually all my closings. It's been a great experience. And the earnest money that you'd like to put down, again, that's up to you and your buyer, you as the real estate agent and your buyer, however much money they want to put down as earnest money. Usually you'll want to put somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2% down. But again, it's totally up to you. Typically, I indicate 3 days from the binding agreement date. That's when we have to get that earnest money in to the closing attorney. And the due diligence period, you can put as long as you like. Typically, if it's a cooler market, I'll put 14 days. If it's a hotter, white hot market, I might put no less than 4 business days, because I know with my team of inspectors and whatnot that we can get out to that property within 72 hours, 72 to 48 hours, 48 to 72 hours. But again, if you want to give it a little bit longer, it's totally up to you. But the shorter the better, especially, from a seller's perspective. All this section here, we won't worry about that for this video. Mainly is the due diligence period. In my personal opinion, you should always have a due diligence period. You can say 0 days of due diligence and just buy the home sight unseen. But I personally will very rarely suggest a person do something like that. So the system will automatically pull the brokers that you are a part of as the buyer's representative, and it'll automatically pull the brokers that the selling agent is a part of. Time limit for the offer, you can put whatever time you want to. You can put that it expires midnight the night of that offer, but you want to give the seller's agent and the seller time to review, a decent amount of time to review the offer. So I typically will put 48 hours. So I'd say at midnight on the March 30th, hypothetically, and then going through the remainder of the document here, These are all relevant information to the purchase of the home and the purchase agreement. If a home was built before a certain time, you may need to put a lead-based paint addendum in here. But again, this is just a straight up offer, assuming that the home was not built prior to 1978. And once you go through all of this here, if you want to make sure you have all the documents that you need, that's going to pretty much be what's listed here that's checked for a standard single family home purchase. As I mentioned, you need form F510. So that's checked. And on each form, which we'll look at in a moment, you'll put the exhibit title for each one. So for this one, of course, the F510 form is the closing attorney holding the earnest money. That's the form that's required to say that this closing attorney is going to hold the earnest money. If there is an HOA, you'll need the Community Association Disclosure Exhibit, which is form F32. If it's a conventional loan, you'll need F404. If it is an FHA loan, by the way, that's form F407. And I believe if it's a cash, yes, here it is. If it's a cash purchase, you'll need form F401. But this, again, for this example video, is going to be form F404 that you'll add to this document. Then, as I mentioned, if there is a seller's property disclosure, you would get that from the listing agent. So you would reach out to them and they will tell you how to obtain that form, and you will add that or upload that specific PDF. Since that's coming from somewhere else, you would upload that to your particular bundle by simply going to the form button right here and then clicking upload to upload any external documents that are coming from somewhere else or someone else. All right, so within this particular offer, this is the special stipulation section. So for this sample offer, you can write you can write any additional agreements or anything. Again, you are not an attorney, so you should not act as an attorney. So anything that you put in the special stipulations, you'll want to walk through it with your managing broker or your mentor, if you have a mentor with your EXP brokerage. But for this particular offer here, the managing broker, when they review it, they'll let you know if they need you to change anything here. But for this particular offer, and this was an offer that I actually wrote, I indicated all parties agree that the seller is also offering $600 in seller credit to cover a 1-year premium payment for a home warranty of buyer's choosing, because for a lot of my offers, I will ask that the seller will pay for a home warranty for the buyer. It just adds to peace of mind, for the buyer. And also that the seller will leave the TV that is currently mounted in the living room. If you don't spell it out in this stipulation, what's going to be left in the home, if it's not indicated on the seller's disclosure that it's going to be left already, then you're going to want to, if it's part of your negotiation, if you want them to leave the pool table or something in the home that you like, let's say the plants or whatever, then you'll write that out within the special stipulations here that you are also requesting that they leave something that you may have, as part of your offer. And then this is the section here where you as the buyer or the buyer you're representing would e-sign. And it's very easy to add a signature line. You will just simply click the sign button here. And then it's going to ask which documents are you requesting to sign. So you click continue here. It's going to give you a few errors because there is no buyer's name. This is a sample example here. So obviously you'll just clear these issues here. It's mainly going to be these first two here, these other areas here. It's in yellow, so it's not anything you have to worry about at the onset of this offer. But the red here is saying I need to put the seller and buyer's first and last name. I took all of that out for the example for privacy purposes for this video, but that's where you'll plug in that information. But usually when you put the MLS number in there, it'll automatically pull the seller's information, and then you'll simply add the buyer's information as far as first and last name. And then if you want to sign, of course, this is my name here, so I'm not signing the document yet, I'm not signing this document, so we're gonna click exit. But again, you can add signatures on this part later on. And this is all the information for me as the real estate agent, and then the listing agent here. And then when I'm done with this, as I mentioned, you just throw the signature boxes on each area here that you want to add. If this was a real offer, there would be an option to add the signature box for it. And then again, you'll go to the next document here, which is the closing attorney acting as the holder of earnest money exhibit. And you'll make sure, again, if it was A that was listed on this section here, which is page 6, this is where all the exhibits are. So I'm sorry, this is page 7 of 8 of the purchase and sale agreement. You indicate the letter A as the title for the closing attorney acting as holder of exhibit, earnest money exhibit. And again, the closing attorney's information is what you would plug in here, and you can get that information by contacting the closing attorney office and that you guys agree on and plugging that information there. We are looking at of course, the buyer brokerage engagement form. This is a form that you would, of course, put all of your information and your buyer's information. So the starting date obviously would be the date before you submit the offer, I'm assuming, because you've already talked with the buyer and they've agreed to allow you to represent them. So let's just say that the representation start date for this hypothetical buyer is the week prior to submitting the offer. Or let's say, okay, we'll just say, because it won't allow me because I'm making the offer. So we'll start it at this date and we'll put an end date. So we'll start it a week before we're submitting the offer, and we'll put the end date as, let's just say 90 days from the start date. So March, April, May. So we'll say May 30th is the end date of the buyer's representation. Typically, 60 to 90 days is a good amount of time to put on there that doesn't, lock them under you for an extenuating period of time. But again, it's totally up to you and your potential buyer's comfort level. But it's usually 60 to 90 days is a good time period. Now, agency brokerage for EXP, sub-agency is not allowed. I know you guys remember that as part of your real estate study material. Sub-agency is not allowed. I'll let you do your research again and go back to your material to remember what sub-agency means. Buyer does or does not consent to a broker acting in dual agency capacity. This is a conversation that you'd have with your buyer if they consented to dual agency. Dual agency simply means that you are on both sides of the transaction. So if they're cool with that and you disclose that at the onset, then you check does. If they're not, then you check does not. As far as commission, here in Georgia, typically you will ask as the buyer's representative for 3% of the sales price as part of your commission. Typically speaking, that commission is paid for by the seller, but if it is not covered by the seller, then the buyer you're representing is agreeing to pay you 3% of the sales price as part of your commission. And how they would pay you, again, that's a conversation that you would walk through with them. Typically speaking, it would be added to the closing cost that the buyer would have to pay if the seller is not paying you your commission. But again, you can put, typically speaking, again, is 3%. But if you agree to something less than that, then that's totally up to you. Now, the protected period, this is the amount of time that you'd be covered for any properties that you show a buyer. Typically, I'll put 120 days that I'm covered, assuming that it's a property I've shown and they decide to use somebody else and then go back to the same property that I already showed them. Typically, you'd be protected as far as any commissions is generated from that. All right, so going through, this is just the other aspects of the brokerage engagement. With your particular broker, if there are some extra disclosures that they want you to provide, they will let you know that. But again, this is just for my brokerage, ABCs of agency, just giving them more insight is something that you'd want to provide your buyer. You can get that form from your managing broker. They can point you in the right direction. And then how to protect yourself when buying real property. That's another brochure that you're going to want to make sure that you get to your buyer. And again, your managing broker can help provide that information. If there are any special stipulations between you and your buyer, you'll go through all that here. You'll line item all that as well, and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Once you get down to the final page here, this is where your buyer or buyers, if it's more than one buyer you're representing, this is where they will, you'll print their name here, put their mailing address if you have one for them, and then you can either add signatures by clicking this box here. If you don't know how to do that, then just print this document, sign it, and then scan it back to yourself. I forgot to mention that on the previous page. If you do not know how to add signatures here, again, using the instructions I gave you, just print it, wet sign it, and then scan it back to yourself, and you'll be good to go. And again, these are the loan exhibits. If there is a loan on the property that you're using to finance the property, so you click there. Okay, so for this particular property, let's just assume that you always want to make sure for each of these documents that you have today's date listed on it. That's very important, or the date of the offer is what I meant to say. So for this particular loan, for example, and you'd get this information from the buyer's lender, assuming that you're working with someone who's pre-approved. I don't suggest, personally speaking, putting an offer on a property until you have spoken with that lender and you know that they are pre-approved. That way it's not a waste of your time as the buyer's representative. But you plug in, if it's a if it's a 100% loan, for example, or if it's a 95% loan, which is what a conventional loan would be, then you'd plug in 95% of the purchase price is going to be financed because they're putting 5% down, which is standard with a conventional loan. If it's a 30-year loan, you plug that information here. Whatever the interest rate is, let's just say today it's 6.55% hypothetically. If it's a fixed loan, you put that there. And if it's an institutional loan, which is a traditional lender, you put that here. If it's seller finance or something else, you'd plug all that there. Then you'd plug the name of the bank here that they're using. Financing contingency, I typically will put 25 days from the binding agreement day that we have to get approved for financing. You want to give your buyers as much time as possible. Standard time is 25 days that I put on my offers. And then the appraisal contingency section here, I typically will put 25 days as well, typically. And then once you get down to that section and you're done there, then you of course get your buyers to sign either by e-signing or printing and having them sign through DocuSign, .loop, or whatever signature services you like to use. Within eXp, you have some signature options that if you reach out to the tech support on the eXp world, they can help you do that. But if you're in a pinch, then just print it, have them sign it, and then scan it back to yourself. But you can do e-signatures and all that within the Remind system. Lastly, here is the agreement of the closing attorney to serve as holder of the earnest money, as I mentioned. So Weissman is the attorney that we're using on this hypothetical. It was the holder of the earnest money. Address is listed here for the subject property. What you'll do is once you have this page completed, you will not sign this. This is what the closing attorney will sign, but this will all be a part of the packet that if your offer is accepted, which I'm hoping that it will be, then you will email all of these documents here: the purchase and sale agreement, the F510, the F110, buyer brokerage engagement. This is really for your records and your broker's records. You wouldn't send this to the closing attorney, but you would send the loan contingency if it's a conventional loan, FHA, VA, cash, whatever the case is. Then you'd also plug in the agreement for the closing attorney to serve as holder of the earnest money, which is this document here. You would send all of this, not including the buyer brokerage engagement. That, along with everything here, would go to your broker for broker review, but that's another video. But these are the documents that would go every document here except the buyer brokerage engagement will go to the closing attorney for them to have on record. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Again, if you're in a pinch, now you know how to find all the documents necessary. If you got value from this video, if you're a Georgia real estate agent and you'd like to explore what being a part of this amazing brokerage eXp Realty is all about, and the trainings that you get like this from me is all about, and we're building our team out on a regular basis, so I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you're a brand new agent, if you're a veteran agent, and you just want to level up your business in the new year, click the link in the description of this video to book a call. And until the next training video, I am your host, Marvin, signing out. Are you a real estate agent looking to jumpstart your career? Join our online agent network and gain access to the support and resources you need to succeed. One of the most effective ways to attract clients in this industry is through social media. And I can tell you, in my entire time as a real estate professional, I have not knocked on one door, and yet I've still generated several $1 million worth of sales per year. And our team is here to help you do the same thing. Click the link in today's show notes today, or visit IamTheTribe.com to learn more about this amazing opportunity. Now back to the show.